Hello, welcome to From the South. I'm Laura Prada from our Telesur studios in Caracas, in Venezuela. We begin with our news. You stay with us. And we begin talking about El Salvador because tensions continue to rise as President Nayib Bukele has militarized the area surrounding the parliament building after assembly members from the country's two largest parties refused to attend a session to approve a $109 million loan for his security plan. Snipers have been spotted outside the parliament as government supporters gathered for a concentration called by President Bukele to demand the approval of the $109 million loan. On Sunday, the extraordinary session did not take place as only 28 assembly members out of 85 attended, with both the Arena Party and the FMLN Party refusing to take part. The parliament head lawmaker Mario Ponce has also announced that a session will be held on Monday. Meanwhile, the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights has called for dialogue and the respect of democratic institutions and the rule of law. And the left-wing FMLN political party has responded to President Bukele's call for an insurrection.
If, by making illegal use of state institutions, our people continue to be persecuted, our lawmakers and their families simply, we are making you responsible for this. You can't play with this if you think confrontation and coup d'etat we only bring collateral damage to one side. You are wrong. You are wrong.
We change topic. We go to Bolivia. Thousands have gathered at the municipal stadium in Sacaba in Bolivia's Chapare region for the official launch of the presidential campaign of the Movement Toward Socialism Party. Youth unions, along with Campesino and indigenous movement of the region, joined the presidential ticket of Luis Arce and David Choquehuanca for the festive event. Throughout the weekend, citizens have also been calling for an end to political persecution of mass leaders by the de facto authorities. During the rally this Sunday, the candidates call on all Bolivians to participate in the May 3rd general elections, which will come a mere 6 months after the military coup against President Evo Morales.
It has been more than 500 years of lies, and we have decided to return to the truth. Our political instrument will bring us back to the path of the truth.
And we move on to Brazil. There, about 20,000 Petrobras oil workers have joined a nationwide strike against the dismissal of 1,000 workers at Brazil's biggest petroleum company, Petrobras. According to Brazil's Oil Workers Federation, the FUP, protesters paralyzed work in 91 units of the company across the country, including platforms, terminals, and refineries, as the strike wraps up its 9th day. Workers demand that the company backtracks on the dismissal of about 1,000 workers at the Paraná nitrogen fertilizer factory, as well as comply with the collective labor agreement. We continue talking about Brazil, but in other kind of topics. This weekend, the city of Rio de Janeiro hosted a cultural festival to celebrate the 40th anniversary of the Workers' Party. Let's have a look on the following story.
With 1.5 million members, the Workers' Party is one of the largest political organizations in Latin America. In 2020, it celebrates 40 years of existence, and as part of the celebrations, the main progressive parties from Brazil came together in an event that could represent the formation of a historic front ahead of the upcoming regional elections.
A united front to defend democracy and the rights of the people. a front that can drive Brazil forward with the support of the people to defeat Bolsonaro's government.
If we can set aside our differences as left-wing parties and we can recognize that these times call for unity and political action, then we can decide on whether or not we can form alliances, but always prioritizing our common interests.
The Workers' Party is made up of millions of workers from across Brazil, of different genders, ethnicities, and social groups. Many of them took part in this festival, which also celebrated the recent liberation of former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva.
During the time he was in prison, we were there in Curitiba to give ourselves to the fight, and today it couldn't be any different.
My children can go to school today thanks to Lula. If it weren't for him, we'd be in a very bad situation. He needs to be president again.
The euphoria rises as Lula arrives, accompanied by the former president of Uruguay, José Mujica. Their speech was aimed at the youth of Brazil, as under Bolsonaro, the nation suffers from an unemployment rate of 12% and 41% of workers work in irregular conditions.
The world will become a better place if the youth shows compromise, if they can spend a part of their lives fighting for justice and equality.
For Lula, who left office in 2010 with an approval rating of 87% and recently served 580 days in prison due to political persecution, the message is clear.
If we lose interest, if we have fear, if we don't take the streets, if we don't raise our voices and we don't demand our rights, then we are lost.
The party that was in power for 4 consecutive terms is determined to fight against the far right, but it will also seek to regain the trust of many in order to lead a social reconstruction that goes beyond the ballot box.
And from this story, with this, we go for a first break. Remember, you can follow us on Twitter at Telesur English and on my account at Laura P. Telesur. You stay with us. We are back with our news. The statements made by fugitive Colombian Senator Aida Merlano in Venezuela have confirmed criminal ties that run deep in Colombia's government. We have more about this information on the following story that we have especially for you. Let's take a look.
Following the statements of former Senator Aida Merlano that confirmed previous reports of illegal activities by Colombian politicians to stay in power, the case of the Gerlain and Char families in the city of Barranquilla has regained relevance.
This Char family, of which 9 assembly members are part of, act as if they were presidents. Alex Char was the mayor of Barranquilla until 1 month ago and will allegedly be running for president. They are looking to ally themselves with Uribismo. That is why they entered the government, to find advantageous alliance ahead of the next elections. And their strategy could be one of the strong options for the 2022 elections. But obviously, the Ida Melano case will cast a large shadow, and it may prevent them from running for office.
What Aida Merlano said in Caracas was an open secret. Many sectors of Colombia had not only already denounced the same crimes at various courts, but also in Congress. The schemes the right wing uses to remain in power were widely known, making clear the relationships between paramilitary groups and politicians, as is the case of former President and current Senator Álvaro Uribe, who is involved in various investigations that have suspiciously been stalled.
All of the illegal activities by Uribe Vélez are of public knowledge, but sadly the justice system in this country does not work. How many accusations have been made against him? I believe there are 202, but up until now the investigations have not moved forward at all. At the moment we are preparing a case against his brother for paramilitary activities.
With Aida Merlano's statement, the criminal mafias in Colombia have once again been made public, and are something that, for many experts, have been going on forever.
She is a reflection of Colombia's political class, and she was forced to flee the country and ask for protection because her life was at risk, by players that have always been involved in politics in this country.
Colombia's Supreme Court has requested that Merlano's extradition be expedited via Colombia's foreign ministry, but President Iván Duque has not shown his willingness to move ahead with the process, as he refuses to make the request to the constitutional government of President Nicolás Maduro, while the Bolivarian government has shown its willingness to resume consular relations with Colombia.
We'll have to see how this story finishes up. Now we move on to other topics. We go to Africa because on the 33rd ordinary session of the African Union Summit held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, President Cyril Ramaphosa was elected as new chairman of the group. The South African president stated that as Africans living in the new era, they should shoulder the greatest of responsibilities to ensure that Africa's wealth does not become her poverty and that her blessing does not become her curse and that their endowment does not become their downfall. Ramaphosa also highlighted that the African Continental Free Trade Area as one wonderful solution for some of the challenges present in the continent. And the African leaders who gather at Ethiopia's capital Addis Ababa for this two-day summit and peace building, the African Union held Silencing Guns seeks to find ways of resolving conflicts across the continent and to resolve the security situation in war-torn nations. The leaders are also set to review a goal adopted by the African Union in 2013 of ending all wars in Africa by 2020.
The Horn of Africa, the Sahel and the Lake Chad Basin are today at war, a real war, where military and civilians are dying by the dozens almost every week. Thousands of children have seen their schools closed, either because they are destroyed or because teachers and school children have been forced to flee.
A far-reaching joint AU-UN framework on peace and security on the continent. I commend the African Union for making Silencing the Guns such a prominent part of its work by 2020.
And the participants at the African Union Summit also firmly rejected United States and Israel's so-called Middle East peace plan, or as they are also calling it, the deal of the century.
with regards to the US-inspired plan for the Palestinians, that as I listened to it and as I read everything that's written about it, it brought to mind a horrible history that we as South Africa have gone through.
The case of Palestine best illustrates the fragility of international commitments. The American-Israeli plan, described as the deal of the century, conceived and drawn without any international consultations, and worse still, in the absence of the main concerned parties, the Palestinians, is yet another violation of multiple United Nations and African Union resolutions, and further disregard for the legitimate rights of the Palestinian people.
We continue in Africa. At least 8 people have been killed and 20 are reportedly missing after a militia attack in Eastern Democratic Republic of the Congo. Some hundreds of families had to flee from their homes after a rebel group allied to the Allied Democratic Forces attacked the area. The DRC army has launched an operation to flush out the ADF militia, which has been blamed for killing more than 1,000 civilians in Benin since October 2014. Local police are also still searching for those missing. And Cameroonians have voted in general elections despite violent threats from separatist groups and calls for a boycott by the opposition. Security forces were deployed to protect voters in the southwest region, one of the 2 provinces gripped by bloody separatist violence. But thankfully, no instances of violence have been reported. The Central African country's legislative and local council election happened for the first time in 7 years after 2 previous delays. The results are expected to be announced in 20 days.
I'm satisfied to cast my vote, and I'm happy because at least there's security to protect each and every one of us who come here today to vote.
I want to vote because you see, it is good to put someone on the seat, the person that you love with your heart, that this person can do something better.
With this information, we go for a second and very short break. Just stay tuned with us.
Discover the cultural diversity that defines a continent. The place where art and tradition are part of the same nucleus. Artistic expressions, values, passion, and more. Real life. Fridays, only on Tourist World.
We are back with our news. The Sinn Féin left-wing party had a victory on the nation's general elections, winning the highest percentage of first preference vote in Northern Ireland. The main left-wing party secured 24.5%, leading in the first round of voting to set it on course to win a record number of 29 seats in parliament so far on early Monday, which put in head of the center-right Fianna Fáil on 22.2% and the Fine Gael party of Prime Minister Leo Varadkar at 20.9%. The support for Sinn Féin came as voters said they hope to break the historic bipartition of the Conservative and bring change to the nation.
It's a big statement of change. It is a big statement that this is no longer a two-party system. It's a statement that people want a different type of government and that people have great confidence in us. And I say that with all humility, and I deeply, deeply appreciate that. The best outcome is a government without Fine Gael and Fianna Fáil. So that's the first thing that I want to test, whether or not that is possible. I also have consistently said that I will talk to and listen to everybody. I think that's what grown-ups do. I think that's what democracy demands. This is not a protest vote. This is certainly an election that is historic in proportions. This is changing the shape and the mould of Irish politics. This is not a transient thing. This is just the beginning.
And one of Germany's main railway companies, Deutsche Bahn, has suspended long-distance train services in many parts of the country's northwest due to a storm Ciara. In Germany, where the storm is known as Sabine, several airports, including Frankfurt, Berlin, Munich, Cologne and Hanover have also cancelled over 100 flights. With hurricane-force winds up to 140 kilometers per hour, Storm Ciara also lashed out on other northern European countries such as the United Kingdom, Netherlands, Ireland and France. In China, the death toll from the novel coronavirus has risen to 909 people, while almost 3,300 people have been recovered. China's National Health Commission said that the number of infected people in mainland China has passed 400,000, while there are at least 300 cases in other countries across the world. An advanced team of international experts led by the World Health Organization have left for Beijing to help investigate the epidemic. Meanwhile, tens of millions of people plan to go back to work on Monday as the Lunar New Year holiday comes to an end in China, and after authorities had extended the end of the holiday with 10 extra days because of the virus. We change topic. Thousands of Moroccans have also taken to the streets in the capital to protest against Trump's deal of the century, calling it a theft of the century. Carrying Palestinian flags, the demonstrators, including local politicians and trade unionists, marched in Rabat, chanting "Long live Palestine." People also called for boycott of U.S. products, denounced the Trump administration as enemies of peace, and chanted "Palestine is not for sale." Trump's plan has also been rejected by the Arab League and the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, two organizations in which Morocco is a prominent member.
This popular demonstration is not only to support a people, but also to support truth and humanity.
We are taking part today in this march in Rabat to support the Palestinian situation and to say no as Moroccans, Arabs and Muslims. No to the agreement of the century, which does not represent either the free Moroccans, Arab or Muslims. We are also here to say, like most of the participants here, that the Palestinian situation is everyone's business.
On Sunday morning, sharpshooters in Thailand killed a gunman who opened fire at a mall in Nakhon Ratchasima, killing 29 people. The soldier behind the massacre was shot dead after a gunfight that lasted more than 17 hours. The gunman used a stolen machine gun and rifles from one of Thailand's largest barracks to carry out the attack. Citizens held a vigil on Sunday for the victims of the horrific massacre. Friends and relatives of those killed gathered in Nakan Chima, holding candles while monks chanted prayers for the dead and injured.
I want to give condolences to the victims, even though they are not my family. I am saddened by what happened. Thailand has never seen anything like this. Everybody is in shock and asking how our safety in the future will be guaranteed and how to prevent this kind of incident from happening again.
And hundreds of people gathered in India's capital to campaign for an end to gender-based violence. People from several gender justice organizations showed up in New Delhi as part of the 1 billion raising campaign to combat rape and sexual violence against women and girls. According to a 2018 study, India ranks as the most dangerous country for women due to the high risk of sexual violence and being forced into slave labor.
1 billion people, men, women and children who love and respect women, should rise and say, no more violence, enough is enough.
We all need to stand up because it could be anybody, it could be me next. We need to understand that. So things have changed, but I think a lot more needs to be done. So we have to keep the momentum on for this movement.
And we change topic completely. We talk about culture. The South Korean film Parasite made Oscar history, becoming the first foreign language movie to win the Best Picture at the 22nd Oscar Awards. Directed by Bong Joon-ho, this was the first time ever nomination of a South Korean film, winning Best Director, Best Original Screenplay, and Best International Film. While one of the favorite, Joker, got 2 Oscars out of the 11 nominations, one of them being Best Actor for the incarnation of the Joker by Joaquin Phoenix. Best Actress Oscar went on to Renée Zellweger for the film Judy. Best Documentary Film was awarded to American Factory, and the Best Original Song award was given to Elton John's end-titles theme for his own biopic, Rocket Man. One of the trending moments of the night was the tribute made by Natalie Portman at the red carpet when she wore a cape with needlework with the names of the female directors that weren't nominated in this Oscar edition. With this cultural note, we come to the end of this news brief. Of course, you can find this and much more other information on our website, TelstarEnglish.net, where you can read opinion articles, watch special interviews, and find and follow all the information on their development in Latin America, the Caribbean, and of course, the rest of the world. The invitation has been made. You continue with us with Telesur, always together, connecting our global thousands. Until next time, thank you for watching.
Who's moving the chessmen? What interests motivate the actors behind